These are the notes on evolution. You should fill them out on your note sheet and make sure you hold on to that because I will check it and you'll be able to use it on the quiz. You should watch this whole video. You can pause it when you need to record things on the note sheet, but make sure you listen to the entire video as well because there are things that I'll go over that are not written down. So evolution, you saw this process happening in the Breeding Bunnies lab. The most general definition of evolution is the process by which populations change over time from one generation to the next. So a population of an individual species that is changing in some way over time. Now, based on what we know about genetics, if a population is changing, the traits that the individuals within a population is changing, that has to be due to changes in genetics. And we know that the particular traits that any one individual has are determined by the alleles that they have. So if a overall population is changing, that means the allele frequency, or how common particular alleles are within a population, must be changing. So in evolution, there are particular individuals that might survive and then pass on their genetics to their offspring, and therefore those particular alleles that those individuals have are the ones that become passed on. Now, there's some disagreement among scientists about whether evolution occurs at the genetic level or the individual level or the population level, but really it's the population is changing, and that's due to certain individuals that had particular alleles surviving and passing those on. And as a population changes over time, if it changes enough, this can eventually lead to the formation of a new species. So one species could split into two, or one species could change into a new species. But we're talking here about hundreds or thousands of generations. Depending on the species, that might be hundreds or thousands of, or even millions of years for that to occur. Now, in order to talk about new species being formed, we need to then understand what a species is. And we defined this in the fall as well, but we'll return to that. There's many different definitions of a species. Some that, in a group of individuals that look similar to each other, but the most common one used in biology is that it's a group of organisms that can successfully mate with each other and produce fertile offspring, which means offspring that are then able to have their own children. So a group of individuals, a group of different type of animals, as long as they have the ability to mate and then produce offspring that also have the ability to mate, then they could be considered part of the same species. Now, when we talk about evolution, one key term that's going to come up again and again is this term of adaptation. Now, adaptation can be used as both a noun and a verb. We tend to want to use it as a noun in this case, that it's a particular characteristic. You can also talk about somebody adapting or changing over time. We want to reserve the word evolution for that, and in this case talk about adaptation as a noun, a characteristic, a particular phenotype, if you will, using our vocabulary from genetics, that will help a particular organism survive and reproduce in a particular environment. And one very important thing to note is that adaptations in one environment may not be as helpful in another. So in one environment, it might be helpful to have fur, and in another environment, it might be helpful to not have fur, depending on the temperature or other characteristics of that environment. So what is an adaptation for a particular individual depends on both what that characteristic is and the environment that they're in. So it's an interplay between the two that determines what defines something as an adaptation. Now, when we talk about evolution, there are different ways, different mechanisms that can cause evolution. So we talk about the theory of evolution that was proposed by Darwin in the late 1800s, and he was not the first one to come up with the idea of evolution, the idea that species had changed, but he was the first one to provide a viable mechanism and evidence for that mechanism. And so the mechanism that he came up with is selection. And there's actually there's the part of selection that he talked about, and then there's a little bit more to selection that we're going to go through as well. And then we're also going to later go through some of the other ways that evolution can occur as well, because selection is not the only way that can cause a population to change. So what Darwin came up with was his theory of evolution by natural selection. So this is a type of selection. It's one of the ways that can cause a population to change over time. Now, natural selection requires these four characteristics to be true of a population in order for natural selection to cause a population to evolve. So if these four things are true, if these four conditions are met, then a population would evolve. And if we want to think about if a population can evolve or not, we want to think about, is it meeting these four conditions? So the first one being overproduction, that there's going to be more organisms produced than the particular environment can support. So more individuals are going to be born than potentially can survive for their entire lifetime and live to reproduce. The second characteristic that must be true in a population is that there has to be some sort of inherited variation, that not all individuals can be exactly the same. There has to be some differences within the species, and that those differences can be passed on from parents to offspring. They must be some sort of genetic differences. So they would be determined by some alleles, and that those could be then passed from parents to offspring. And we learned all about that in the genetics unit, how those particular alleles could be passed on. And we saw there one important thing that to consider is the different types of inheritance patterns that can occur, that it doesn't always work the same way. So even there must be some type of inherited variation. How that variation is inherited can vary greatly from trait to trait. Our third characteristic is somewhat related to the first one. If there is more organisms produced than an environment can support, then there has to be some sort of struggle to survive, that the organisms are competing with each other in order to survive. So you'll hear of the phrase survival of the fittest. That's kind of related to this third one here, that only some of those organisms are going to survive. And then the fitness part relates to our fourth part, is successful reproduction. The ones that are best adapted, so there's our adaptation word, use an adjective here. The ones that are best adapted to their environment are the most likely to pass on their traits to their offspring. So survival of the fittest, these last two here are kind of survival of the fittest. So fitness in the context of evolution really means the ability to have children and pass on your traits to your children. So these last two characteristics, the ones, there's going to be some competition among the individuals in a population to survive, and the ones that are best adapted, the ones that do survive, have the best chance of surviving, are going to be the ones that are more likely to pass on their traits. And if they pass on their traits, they're also passing on their genes, their alleles, the particular DNA that they have to their offspring. And that would then lead to those particular alleles becoming more common or more prevalent in that population as a whole. So this can lead to a population changing because particular alleles are selected for. They are more likely to win in this struggle to survive and therefore become more common. This is what you saw in the breeding bunnies lab. The bunnies that had fur were more likely to survive and therefore more likely to pass on their genes to their offspring, their alleles that they had to their offspring, and therefore over time the population changed and the frequency of furred bunnies increased as the frequency of the allele for a furred bunny increased as well. Now, this is the most common mechanism for evolution. It's the most talked about. It's the one that everybody thinks about when they think about evolution. There's a couple other types of selection that can occur that are closely related but have slightly different criteria for who is selected for. So selection is just, as the word implies, that there are certain individuals that are being selected. In natural selection, that selection was due to individuals' ability to survive, their likelihood of not being killed, of not starving to death, etc. So whatever characteristics that helped them to survive are what led to them then passing on their traits and being more successful, and the population changing to have more of those traits. Now, another type of selection that is closely related to that is known as sexual selection. And this is related to natural selection. In fact, it might be considered a subset of natural selection, so it's kind of a misnomer to characterize it as separate than natural selection here, but I have it as a different type of selection here to kind of differentiate it. Sexual selection is where the selective pressure is determined by the ability to attract a mate as opposed to the ability just to survive. Now, in some cases, the ability to attract a mate, some characteristics that might allow an individual to attract a mate, might be counter to their ability to survive. And this oftentimes results in some very interesting, colorful traits that would otherwise be a disadvantage to their survival. And one common example of this would be the feathers on a peacock. They have big, huge, colorful tail feathers on the males, and the reason for that is that it allows them to attract a mate. However, if you're trying to avoid a predator, if you're trying to not be seen or run away really fast, having big, huge, colorful tail feathers are probably not an advantage. So in that case, the sexual selection was probably a stronger selective pressure than the struggle to survive pressure, and led to this very colorful, ostentatious trait becoming more common in that population, simply because that allowed them to then attract a mate, and then that then comes back to that fourth characteristic. If they can attract a mate, they can successfully reproduce and pass on their traits to their offspring, and therefore make that trait more common. So in this case, the pressure comes from the ability to attract a mate as opposed to just the ability to survive long enough to be able to reproduce. Now, a third type of selection is known as artificial selection. This is also known as selectively breeding. In both natural selection and sexual selection, these are things that are happening in nature. They would happen without human influence. It's determined by the environment that they're in and their other individuals as part of the species. However, there are some cases where humans are making the choice about which individuals survive and reproduce and mate with each other. In a farm where a farmer is choosing which horses are bred with each other, or which dogs are bred with each other, or which crops he's going to mix the pollen from one wheat field with the crops of another one. These would all be examples of artificial selection or selectively breeding, where humans are picking which individuals are selected for. And this, just like natural selection or sexual selection, can also lead to a change in the population over time, because certain individuals with particular variation are, again, more successful at reproducing. That success is just determined by humans who are picking it. Now, when we think about selection, there are three different ways that this can change a population. So if we think about a population of individuals, if we take height, for example, we have the height of individuals on the x-axis here, and the number of individuals with a particular height on my y-axis. You would expect there to be some sort of even distribution or a bell curve distribution like this, where there's going to be a lot of people in the middle, at maybe for humans, for males, maybe that's like 5'10" or so. And then there's maybe slightly less people at 5'6", and slightly less people at 6'2", and then as we start to get taller and taller, there's less and less people. So the number of individuals drops for really short, and the number of individual drops for really tall, and the people somewhere in the middle, there's a lot of individuals, so that's high up on the number of individuals. So this is a distribution of the number of individuals. Now, selection, depending on where on the spectrum is favored, we can see a shift in that curve. And the next video is going to go into those different types of selection and how they can shift that curve.